I know that my voice is scratchy. I was okay until I wasn't. Like like last night, my voice just started to go, and then I woke up this morning and I was like, I can't talk. Um, Thank you so much for having me this evening. I am humbled and just I love you guys. You guys are just like this very healthy microcosm of what I want the world to be. And so I feel very just simply blessed by being a part of this group. So I'm excited to talk about my reflections. Um, is this gonna be like a vocal journal? Like I like I don't know whether I got the assignment all right, but like I was trying to think about how to summarize the year, and I ended up going back to my blog, which I write kind of monthly. I need to be a little bit more regular about it, but I kind of just spill my guts. I talk about the highs and lows. I talk about, events that are happening, that happened or will happen. And and sometimes I'm just very introspective. And so what I decided to do with this presentation is just to highlight text from my blog that like show what I was thinking at the time. If I can just get it to work. So in January, I so now like when I look back at January 2024, I realize that there's a pattern. And this pattern is flogging, self-flogging, as I look back at all the things that I did not accomplish, all the things that I did not do, all the things that I quote unquote failed at. And then I get to this period of grace. And so this particular part of the blog is I also take this moment to reflect on the challenges. For instance, I pitched Kidogo to dozens of potential investors outside of Pipeline Angels without any bites. I have attempted to build an active community, discussion community, and then lack the capacity to nurture it. I wish that more people attended our events. These challenges bring about opportunities for learning, growing, and making progress. I give myself permission to be disappointed and then to extend myself and others grace. So at this particular period, I was in discussion with Ujima, but like I wasn't, it wasn't there was no guarantee that like the vote hadn't happened. It was like this period of like, will I make it? Will I not? I'm looking back and I'm like, oh, there were all these things that I wanted to do. Maybe I should have said this during my pitch. And this particular video was I just recorded myself during one of those pitches, and I realized when I listened back that I used the word quite a lot. I was like, maybe that was the reason why they said no. But all of these things are ways of self-logging. What I what I like about this pattern is that I eventually get to the point where I extend myself grace. And that grace is the kind of grace that says, even though I didn't do this, it's okay because I have this. And so it's it's the ability to look at what is rather than what isn't, and its ability to look at what I have rather than what I don't. And it is the ability to look forward rather than just looking backward. Um, so July, by the time I got to July, uh, the vote, the Ujima vote had already taken place. The deposit wasn't in there in the account, but I knew that it was coming. And by this time, I'm smoking like I'm on gas. Like I have already pulled out money from different bank accounts trying to keep the team going, but I knew that it was coming. And so the word support, community support, was just like in the ether. And I realized that community is not just like, oh, we live in Boston, but it's family, it's friends, it's Ujima, it's my professional network. You know, it's the ability to make connections with people, even if I don't know them. And that's the part that I feel like is kind of a little bit one of my superpowers is that I tend to be able to be a little bit like glue, and that if I'm in people's sphere, like they're gonna stick, and I'm gonna draw them in and bring them in. And so I really feel like being that kind of glue or magnet is just going to help propel and help carry all of us forward. You don't have to read that. I will read it for you. So in September, um, I had by September, I had made this really huge move. And this is not just me, but it was my family as well. So for those of you who don't know, my husband works in the Foreign Service for the U.S. State Department, and he got a job in Togo. And we have one daughter. She is turning 8 in early February, and we had this really long, years long, drawn out discussion about, you know, what kind of experience do we want for our daughter? And we knew that things in the U.S. were taking turns that we really did not appreciate and did not like. And so we said, should we have Amara be with my husband in Togo? So he had been in Haiti for 4 years, and my daughter and I stayed in Boston, and he would come back every 6 weeks. And so we were like, should we flip it this time so that Amara will actually be in Africa with my husband? So we said yes. And August, this strange month where highs of being, finally I received this investment from Ujima. But then there's this longing and pain because I literally had to drop my daughter off in Togo. I knew it was going to be really exciting for her. I knew that she was going to like learn and stretch and be able to be a part of the global sphere rather than um, kind of keeping her in a small community, which is what we were doing. We were trying to protect her. So this part of the blog was like just trying to reflect on the newness of everything. We have thrown ourselves into the newest new of the new. Amara is now officially studying abroad in Togo. She is being fully immersed, that is, dunked, into our French speaking classroom, which is filled with new faces, new teachers, and a new school, in a new country, on a new continent. She came home from school on her first day, shrugging her shoulders, saying, I didn't understand anything. So I just followed people, and I realized that is exactly what my entrepreneurship journey feels like, is that sometimes we as entrepreneurs don't understand the best and exact steps to take. Sometimes we don't understand the external or even internal forces which seem to hold us back. Sometimes we just don't understand anything. So we just follow people, their advice, their guidance, their mentorship, and their support. And I have been lucky to follow people like those in Ujima, who was in the news a few days ago because they raised this $5 million fund. And I also follow people at the Black Ambition Prize competition because I was in the competition at the time. We had the pod meetings that were bi-weekly, and I felt great enthusiasm and support and practical and applicable information from them. Following good people while following my purpose is getting me through moments of uncertainty. So my last nugget that I pulled from my blogs is something that I wrote in November 2024. So the year is wrapping up. We're plowing into the holidays, and the election had just happened. And so it was kind of strange and otherworldly. I just kept on getting people coming up to me and saying this one phrase. And so here's the blog piece about that. I have now heard from more than a handful of people since a certain political event occurred that Kidogo is quote unquote now needed wait, Kidogo is needed now more than ever before. Yes, that is true, but more accurately, it's now evident to more people that Kidogo is needed more than ever. The underlying need has always been there, unfortunately. I can conjure up plenty of doomsday scenarios about what is to come, but the best that I can do is build a company that puts the well-being of children at the center of our purpose. And that remains to be like as we've now have felt day one and day two. That is the only thing that I can do now is just to try to stay anchored and try to stay centered and focused on the purpose of my company. Because I still do believe that we are needed now, just as we were needed always. So I'll wrap that up. Thank you.
Thank you so much. If you have any questions, please jot them down. We will be doing Q&A at the end. Next up, let's see, is Bex. We have an introduction for you. Give us
Just
2 seconds.
just two. Nope. I was enraptured by the story. I'm sorry. Yes. Bex. We have Bex Oluwatoyin, almost, Thompson on the publication team, who is a writer and educator at Harvard Divinity School, exploring the intersection of spirituality and art. A Harvard College graduate in sociology and African American studies, she has taught courses on race and gender in carceral spaces and co-created a graphic guide on mass incarceration as a 2022 Applied Cartooning Fellow. Her work focuses on healing and care in the aftermath of racial, colonial, and gender violence. Bex, for you, take it away.
Thank you, Mary and Camaria. I'm gonna just share my screen. You all can see this, right? And hear me? Okay, perfect. Okay, hi everyone. First of all, thank you, Alula and James. I'm not sure if James is in the room with us, but thank you all for inviting me to speak on being a publications team member during the year 2024. Being on the publications team has been a really mind-opening, fun experience for me over the last year. So I'm really glad that I get a chance to talk a little bit more about what we've been up to for the past few months. So I've been a member of Ujima's network since 2023 when I moved back to Boston for school. And I primarily entered the network through the cultural organizing that happens at Ujima, the arts and cultural organizing. And one of the first things that I got to do was volunteer for Adam Davis's Black Magic project that was being housed in the same space that Ujima held offices. So that was a really cool project to have hands-on. And I just remember meeting a lot of Ujima members through that project. And I began to develop a few relationships and friendships at Ujima. And it really felt like an anchor and a home for me outside of school in Boston, and I was really excited to, connect more with what was happening locally in the city. So as I participated more with Ujima programming, I had the opportunity to think about any types of programming that I wanted to put on for the community and think about ways that I wanted to serve. And last spring, the Schlesinger Library at the Radcliffe Institute had an archival exhibition on view that centered the narratives and stories of Black women, primarily in Boston and Cambridge, but also around the nation. And I co-organized a tour of this exhibition with my friend Niara, who is here with us today. And this community offering was generously supported by Boston Ujima and Black Girls in Art Spaces. We held a conversation after the tour and had a chance to reflect on public and private archives and the significance of owning and publishing our own material and narrative histories. So this archival tour actually led me towards my first formal writing assignment with Ujima. I reflected on the exhibition with the woman who organized the exhibition, Patrina Jackson, and a student who was featured in the exhibition as well, Elise Martin Smith. And this interview is available on the Ujima Wire platform. So yeah, this piece that I made for Ujima Publications was kind of like my first segue, I guess, or introduction into what the publications team has been up to. And then shortly after this piece went up, me and a couple of other folks were invited to join the publications team more formally. So early on, this team decided that we wanted to use the space as a place where we could really like support each other's existing publications projects, gain and share publishing skills that we might not have, and think about ways that we could support one another based on like the skill sets that we already have. So some of us are into graphic design, some of us are into writing, some of us are editors. And we were just thinking about ways that we can kind of come together and use the things that we are good at to kind of create projects and really show up for one another. So the main thing that I want to do today is talk about the community that we've developed over the past year, the ways that we've been kind of sharing our skills, and also thinking about upcoming publication projects. So for me, one of the most significant aspects of the publications team was the community that developed over the past year. Um, from like from a writing standpoint, writing used to feel like a very solitary practice. And then from a more like publication standpoint, I was just like, I don't know how a book or a magazine gets made. And I know that like for a lot of people who are interested in publications, but don't necessarily have, excuse me, the community or resources, even like um, understand how to go about how a publications can be made. A lot of the moving parts can feel very daunting and can discourage people from creating something that they would like, or creating the stories that they're interested in creating and sharing with the community. But being on this team has definitely transformed my relationship to both of those things. I feel like I have just understood more how communal writing and like sharing work, um, the process is. I feel like the process has been way more communal for me in the past year, from like writing a piece to getting feedback from editors, and understanding the difference between like a content editor and a copy editor. Like there have been so many different people who have had hands on my work in the past year that has not been the case for me prior to being on this team. So I've really just developed a completely different relationship to how I view the things that I'm creating, and my own sense of like authorship of the pieces that I write and share. And I feel like I stated earlier, there's a variety of folks coming to this team with a bunch of different backgrounds related to publishing. And so having everyone in this space together and like feeding off of one another has also just opened my eyes to kind of all of the moving parts and dynamics that really go behind the printed matter that you see. There's just so many hands that go into it. So for For us during this past year, we've primarily been supporting each other through resource and skills sharing. We are constantly sending each other publishing, arts, or writing opportunities to deepen and support each other's practices. But we're also asking each other for help often. I remember asking the group for help with like web design very early on. Some members have asked other members to edit their pieces. Some members have asked the writers in the group to write a piece. So there's just been a lot of like distribution of like opportunities between us. And whenever one of us has a need, there's most likely somebody in the group who can meet that need or knows someone who can help us out. So that's been really helpful, and has also just like expanded our horizons for like what's possible in the publishing realm for each of us. But on a more informal note, we are also going to arts and culture events around Boston together. So on the left is a picture and a video from the Kokoroko concert that happened this past year. A few members from our publications team went to the concert together and had a chance to meet some of the members of the band. And yeah, we've just been kind of like also on the right is photos and a video from the Ulysses Assembly exhibition that was recently at the SMFA at Tufts. And people who were on our team that went to this event had a chance to learn more about the relationships between the public and publications, learn more about like book work, book design. And we also had a chance to like make I think it was called like a book intervention or something. And we created this book crib that, as you can see, Alula was sitting on. So it was very sturdy and we made it completely out of books and clamps. And that was a really fun experience and a really nice chance to meet some of the publications team members that I hadn't met in person. And so I feel like we're generally having fun at these events, but I know for sure that I personally and some other members of the team that I've talked to, we know that like these cultural events that we go to around the city kind of inform the type of publications that we're interested in creating. And I'm really excited for what may come of like these two events, for example, that we went to together. Yeah, and I'd just like to cap off by maybe reflecting on what the publications team has been up to last year. Last year, the publications team released Wordsworth Working Towards, which was a poetry zine that a few members of our publications team contributed to. And the digital publications like Ujima Wire were active all year, releasing stories from around our community. So, the publications projects have been pretty lively in the past year, and I'm really excited for what's up and coming. We're really looking forward to the forthcoming issue of Fortunately magazine and a few zine projects. And I'm so happy that I got a chance to work on a couple of those projects, and we'll have a couple pieces coming out this year, hopefully, from those two magazines. And I feel like looking forward, I'm really hoping that there are projects that all or most members of our team can collaboratively work on together. Last year, our members like hopped on projects if they had availability or the capacity or the interest. And I feel like that model ensured that people were working on projects that they were very passionate about. And it also made sure that like the process behind making the publication felt very organic. But I'm also excited to see what it might look like for more members of our team to collaborate on a project together. because we have such like a broad range of folks who are coming in with so many like amazing skills and backgrounds. And I'm just really excited to see how the like how all of that meets and what comes of all of that. So that's all from me. Thank you all so much for listening, and stay tuned for what's to come from the publications team. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bex. That was incredible. Um, round of applause. Oh, you ready? Or you giving it to me to read? Okay, wonderful. Last but not least, we have Lena Canon, MBA, originally from Bogota, Colombia, who is a founding member at Nerd Group. She's currently co-runs DOT Bike Kitchen at Dot Bike Kitchen. Make sure y'all follow that. Serves on the advisory council member of Union Capital Boston and teaches at Suffolk University. Lena is committed to culture and talent retention in Dorchester, especially one that promotes BIPOC leadership. She currently lives in Dorchester. This is not in your bio, but you are also a co-owner of the Dorchester Art Project, which is an incredible organization in Dorchester. Round of applause for Lena. Let's welcome her.
Yay, thanks folks. So hi everybody, I'm Lena Cañon. I go by she, her, ella. And I'm here to just share a little bit about my reflections, high lows, learnings. I don't have a visual as y'all did. I'm like, dang, I should have done a visual. But I think I'm more of like a conversational person, and so I'm just going to tackle it this way. So I've been involved with Ujima for when it was like pre-inception, when it was a thought, an idea, and a thing that was trying to be articulated and pitched and told to people, and people were like, what does that even mean? As the new economy wave was kind of building, and I've been fortunate enough to see the growth, the execution, the trial, the error, and now a whole community built around it, and so many branches of that community branching out of it. So because of that, I've always been a community member, a spectator, and advocate. But in April of this year, I was asked to be like a super voter. And at first I was like, what does this even mean? And often reflect on like my Aries fire sign being like the squeaky, what is it, like the squeaky wheel gets the grease or the warm or whatever. And so I'm like, yep, that's me. I'm the squeakiest one of all, because I'll always tell you what I'm thinking and what I'm wanting and what I'm seeing. And sometimes in certain spaces that's not received or welcomed. And Ujima is a place where it's always been so received but heard, and I feel like it contributes, and it's been so beautiful. So being asked to be a super voter to me meant participating, right? It meant like I have had some type of participation. My squeakiness got somewhere. Always having like comments and suggestions, and also, as Mary mentioned, being very Dorchester oriented. I think one of my life trajectories has been migration. I came to the US when I was 10 years old. And so as an immigrant, I've never really had a home, but everything I can make home, because any community I enter, that you can feel the vibes and make the vibes. And so I was displaced from East Boston when the Eddy and the shore, building and construction went out. And so I found home in Dorchester and refuge in Dorchester from that Eastie displacement, and many other Colombian folks were also displaced from there. And Dorchester just welcomed me, and I'm very much about like, if I'm going to be in this community, I'm going to honor and uplift the culture of this community and support the retention of what that culture looks like, even as an outsider. I'm very aware that I also enter spaces as an immigrant saying, I'm not from here, and how can I preserve the culture of this place? And so the thing that excited me the most about being a voting member, or like a super voter delegate now, is being able to uplift and advocate for Dorchester. I think I've been now there for 8 years, and one of my I have a lot of like erg moments because again, I'm a fire sign, so I'm mad about something every day. I wake up mad about something. If you ask me, I'll have something to be mad about. But one of the things I was the mostly mad about was seeing all of my talented, amazing friends leave Dorchester and go to Somerville or Cambridge, whether it be to have fun or to move their business or to socialize or to build relationships, and to fuel the economy because that's what this does. Relationships, artistry, all of this fuels the economy. And so I felt some type of way about us fueling other people's economy and not our own in Dorchester. And Ujima provided me the space and this like collaborate and communicative way and community-centered way to uplift, Dorchester businesses. And so that was really what called to me and why I was like, yes, I'll become a delegate. And so the tasks were to, review businesses, and come up with like shortlist ballots and kind of like advocate. And so I took that task on very seriously. Like I was doing my research. So some of my highs, I'm just gonna jump right into this. Some of my highs were focusing on Dorchester businesses. The ballots always say like what neighborhood, and it has like every neighborhood that you can think of, but I was going hard for Dorchester. And so I wanted to advocate and do my research and become a learner and a teacher about the things that I know I see in my community. So one of the highs has been being able to wear that almost with like a little superwoman cape, right? Like being able to do it and be like, that's right, and we're gonna put in a vote for this. Sharing love is something that I am like so passionate about, especially when it comes to small business owners and, hashtag support local business, support local artists. But what does that mean in practice? And so Ujima, being a voting delegate, really gave me the opportunity to say, this is how I'm actually doing that, right? I'm not just telling you to go to Rain Lab or I'm going to name so many closed businesses in this, and I'm doing that on purpose, right? So go to Rain Lab or go to 50 Kitchen or go to all of these places that have now closed in our neighborhood and have closed because not just the pandemic, but the intersection of the pandemic and not having that community uplift buy-in that amplifies it to a bigger level that keeps it to sustainability. So that was one of the biggest highs, was being able to not just advocate for places that I know and love, and can talk about my own experiences. I like Sweet Sip was one of them that I saw on a ballot, and I was like, yes, Sweet Sip, like a community staple where people gather, people go, and then learning about new ones, right? And I think right now what we're experiencing in Dorchester is it's becoming a desert. Our hospital just shut down, our pool down in Dot House just shut down, and the more and more things that we want to do or want to try, Dorchester Art Project space shut down. The more things that we want to do or want to try, we're having to leave Dorchester. I have to leave Dorchester to go to the doctor. I have to leave Dorchester if I want to go swim in a pool. I have to leave Dorchester if I want to have an artist space. And I'm tired of doing that. And so being a voting delegate has allowed me to learn about areas that I didn't know about, but also to advocate for those. The other thing that it helped me do, and this is kind of like the learning piece, is a new level of advocacy within ourselves and each other. I think we all come from a different perspective, and being a voting delegate in a room with other delegates has allowed us to talk through what our perception of places are and what other folks' perception of places are. And so if we think about the places where resource sharing happens, right? For a lot of people, it's social media. And so unless you are a person that has a social media marketer or a savvy or has social media, which I don't, it's really hard for you to get your business out there to share about businesses. So I'm a very vocal, if I could have one of those signs and be the person that's like dancing outside, moving the sign, that's me. That I'm like the one being like, come in here, try this coffee, try this, do this. And so that allowed me to advocate, but then learning about how other folks are seeing businesses, right? Well, this business must not be that good because they don't have an Instagram, or this business must not be good because they have a 1 rating on Google. And allowing all of us in this delegation to sit down and say, well, first of all, who's writing these Google reviews, right? If this is a mom and pop shop where mostly older folks are going, they're not going home to Google review it. Or if this is if this is a mom and pop shop coffee shop, like they're not gonna be on TikTok. Like you're not gonna find it on TikTok. And I think it also allowed our conversations, and that was one of my biggest learnings of centering us and being present and not in the facade or presentation of social media or the internet, right? Like, what does it feel to go to these businesses? What does it feel like to connect with these business owners? What does it feel like to purchase something from there, to proudly wear the stickers that they give you? So that was one of my biggest learnings. The lows were how many businesses didn't make it to the ballots, right? And I think that we can, if you do a canvas of your own block, you can name like 10 businesses that exist within the block, because Dorchester is so business rich and there's still such funneling of like the squeaky wheels are the ones that are getting put up, and the ones that don't have that squeakiness to them or don't have an advocate aren't getting put up. And so that was one of Milo's was saying, like, we're doing good, and damn, we got so much more to go. We got so much more to do, so many more businesses to amplify. And then lastly, for the opportunities reflection, I just wanted to share the leveling up of what true advocacy and research looks like, and taking everybody's perspective into account when you are being an advocate. But again, that communication and perception of who is this neighborhood for? Because if this neighborhood is for transplants and folks that are coming in from Seattle or wherever they're coming in from, then yeah, TikTok marketing is the way to go and Google reviews are the way to go. But if this neighborhood is for the folks that have lived here, worked here, and were born and bred here, then what does that communication, that marketing, that sustainability, and that retention, that cultural retention really look like? And I think that that was the biggest learning opportunity for me that I continue to lean into as a delegate, is questioning myself on how am I continuing to educate myself on that. Y'all, I've had a love-hate relationship with Boston since I got here, and I always tell people, like, I don't know Boston, but now I'm like, I love Boston, Dorchester, and I rep Dorchester so hard that you would never even think I'm like an immigrant from Colombia. And I think that that has been one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about cultural retention, but also Ujima has provided the space for me to lean into that love. Because I could not have said that 2 to 3 years ago before this existed or before we've had these opportunities. So yeah, so that's a little bit about my journey as a voting delegate, and I look forward to continuing to be one, continuing to rep Dorchester and all of the other amazing neighborhoods, but continuing to uplift the businesses that are, getting voted on, getting amplified, and getting put in people's radars.
Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, yeah, Gio's from Dorchester. Gio over here in deep throughout the presentation. So thank y'all. Thank you to our 3 incredible speakers. We are now going to transition into opening up the floor for any questions or comments that people have. And speakers, feel free to ask each other questions too. I want y'all to also feel agency in that. But are there any questions?
I got
Oh, we got mad questions over here. So we're gonna.
y'all are gonna have to cut me off. I'll do one at a time and leave space for other people. Kiana, I really appreciated your being vulnerable with us about, like, as you shared your journey through kind of the anxiety, like the way that you spoke, I could feel that tension of, I'm on the cusp of making it. I got a great opportunity. I'm really grateful for my community, and what that like gap period was like in, like knowing you had a great thing and knowing that you had something that was worthy of being like celebrated, but not feeling like you got all the way there. What do you think is one of, or some of the key factors that helped you stand out and also push through that period where you knew you had something that was great and you didn't hear back, and then you were able to break through? Yeah, I just want to hear a little bit about like what you think helped um correct me if I'm saying this wrong, Kidogo, to kind of like cusp, because to re-reference, Lena saying, hey, there are all these great businesses that exist in the community that we all love and appreciate that did not make it, right?
Yeah. So thank you for that question. I think that it's about rungs, it's about steps in your ladder. And so I can only look at like, I'm a visionary, so I have like this far out vision of what ultimately Kidogo is going to look like. But then in the step by step, sometimes I'm stepping into the dark. And so, right, every time that I take a step and I can look back and I'm like, oh, this is, I've come this far along with the flogging. I just look at the next step. And so I think that's, it's probably, I mean, I'm an earth sign. So like, I think like I'm a little bit practical in a way where like I just go check and then what else do I need to do? So the very next gap that I have is, I have to get selling. So like, this was a pre-seed investment. So it is the thing that helps me build the thing. And so now we're in the process of building the thing, trying to make, an offering that is viable, sustainable, and likable, and that will be resonant to the target audience. And so once I start selling, then it's like growth. So every single step that I take, I'm just looking at the very next one. And so there are a lot of people who are just like, oh, you have to stop and breathe and, and kind of be satisfied with where you are. And I'm like, yes. And then I'm right on to the next thing.
They can hear you now.
Oh, I said thank you for sharing.
And did you have more questions?
I mean, I do, yeah.
If you want,
Go.
you can go for it. Unless anybody, yeah, you can go for it. If other folks have questions too, feel free to raise your hand.
What was my question? I had a question for Bex, which was, I have talked to Alua a little bit about the publication process and team. And so it was cool hearing your perspective on this growth and also the way that you talked about like kind of like coalition building with this and bringing a lot of different skills in. What's one of the most I do want to know like what's one of those most surprising or like um yeah, like one of the surprising or like unexpected things that you had to learn or overcome when it came to developing your writing process and then also the publication process, like bringing the team together of writing from lots of different skills and angles and viewpoints.
Yeah. I think, like I mentioned in my presentation, I think one of the things that was surprising, well, one of the things that I learned from the writing perspective is like I said, I used to really write very like for myself. I would share like a final draft of something without anybody editing or, without getting a second pair of eyes on a piece. And I have kind of shifted now to like, I never want to write something or interview someone and not have a second pair of eyes look at the work before it's shared with someone. Because I just think that like the editing process is just like, or having an editor look at your work allows you to see things from a perspective where you just might have missed things, or you're sometimes when you're writing something, you're so in the world of what you're writing that it's hard for you to take a step back and imagine like all of the people who are gonna confront your work. And I feel like that's something that was a big revelation for me, that like I really rely heavily on editors. And that kind of relates to a surprise that I had about publishing in general, is that it takes a really long time. Longer, maybe not a really long time, but just longer than I expected. And I think that when I was self-publishing pieces, I would have an idea. And then I'd probably like publish something in a week or so, and then it would be out in the world. And it's just not the same timeline at all when you're working on a larger team and when you have other pieces that are accompanying your piece too. So yeah, I think that one of the things that was pretty surprising about the publishing process is that it takes a bit longer. But also, I thought that making magazines is like a really like huge like production, and I'm like, well, you just kind of need one person that can do one thing, and when you all come together, it's pretty easy to bring people's skills together and like create a thing. So now I'm not as afraid to like create my own publication as long as I have a team behind me. So yeah, I think those are some of the things that I learned in the past year.
They can't hear, now they can hear you.
Oh, I really like that reframe of writing as a team sport, essentially.
Absolutely.
'Cause I think for me as an individual, my thought about writing or like getting involved in it, I'm always like, ugh, I'm too extroverted to be sitting in a room like that for 6 hours or however long it takes. So yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Arioka,
the question.
do you have it? Okay. Anybody have questions on Zoom? Okay. Do you have another question? I have questions too, but
Oh,
you,
jump in.
okay, I do have a question. I am curious, Kiana, how the UGBA experience specifically has been for you. Have you been able to collaborate with other businesses? Do you feel like you've been able to get what you need? I know you talked a lot about the investment side of things. I'm wondering about the alliance piece. Have you gotten what you needed from that, and what else may you be looking for in that space?
Yeah, I'm always looking for more alliances. I did have put on a great event with Black Market. The grants were phenomenal. I mean, they're like, Boston royalty. So like working with them, they just knew how to get things done. And so I didn't have to reinvent the wheel in order to do certain things. And they also just were really so kind on the pricing, so that I wasn't breaking the budget in order to. It was a read and do event. We had Leeds kids doing a fashion show after they read a book about kids putting on a fashion show, and like the Chris was the DJ. It was like a family event. They were like, my aunt and uncle, and they helped me put on this thing, even though, like, you know, I've known Kaidi for a while, but it's not like I knew her that well. I really would love to work with uh live like a local tours more. He actually gave us a really beautiful monetary gift for one of our events. Like he was a sponsor, and but I want to be able to like send kids, do like a tour for kids, and we've talked about it a bunch. And he's like, "Oh my gosh, that would be great," and we just haven't done it yet. Um, I want to establish a better connection with the newspaper. What is it? Bay State Banner. In order to like have like a kids corner. Um, and so like they said yes on a Zoom. Like I literally asked them in public, but I want to be able to follow up and really make that connection there. Cupcake therapy. Sharonda is the reason why I'm even a part of Ujima. She is not only my Spelman sister and church sister, but like she's now my Ujima sister. Like she's the absolute reason why I'm here. So
Thank you for that. And I think we have time for, did you have another question?
Yeah.
We have time for one more question. If you have other questions that you wanted to ask but didn't get to, feel free to drop them in the chat and we'll wrap it up.
I also have one last question for Lena. I hope I remember this fully. I'm kind of very interested, and I felt your excitement about being part of the process on like kind of getting to advocate for and support directly some of these businesses locally that you see. When you were doing your research on these businesses, what are some of the things that I really appreciate your shift of like the way it happens online versus the way you see the businesses and the way they're supported and like represented, that how they're present is different than their presentation. I like that framing. Trying to remember my question on this. How what do you think the things that they needed most in this transition from the way that they present and support community to the future of them like staying vibrant and surviving is? Like what are some of the things that you saw them advocate for themselves for, or what are some of the ways that you think it would be more effective to, outside of Ujima, continue to keep these businesses at our forefront in an age where like most of our peers are kind of doing that digital assessment, like you said?
I love that. Thank you for that question. I'm gonna say two things. I think the first one is obviously patronage, like going and buying things is so important, like going and supporting, amplifying and experiencing is really big. But I think the other thing is Boston has this like really weird subculture of trend and competition almost, that it's like if you go to one Vietnamese banh mi spot, you can't go to another. Like that is your go-to, and that is, and you have like this loyalty to going to this one. And when we speak of businesses, we often talk about them that way, like, oh no, but this is my, no, that one's yours, but this is my, and I think that one of the big, and trends allows that to happen too. Like there's this like ability to look at things as a trend where like folks will have high patronage and then a decline in patronage because it's a trend at that moment. And Vietnamese coffee is a trend at that moment, right? Like Bad Bunny is a trend right now. So anything themed Bad Bunny is getting bought out. But the reality is like these places also need longevity. And so thinking about when we win, when I win, you win, we all win, there can be multiple, the way that there are Walgreens across from CVS's and they thrive, right, in this big corporate world and they sell the same things, so can smaller businesses. And I think that creating that longevity of patronage is really, really important. The other thing that I saw from folks is opportunities that scale their services. And so while me buying one coffee every day might be a certain type of impact, me connecting them to a university or a company that allows folks to buy in mass is really, really important too. And again, to the clickiness and the resource hoarding, it's like there are glorified catering places. Like there are places that get catering requests every single day and other places that never receive a catering request. And so thinking about how can I support businesses that aren't in the traditional Boston vendor list of go-to caterers, and how can we really amplify the scope of their services, because that is a whole different revenue item for them. And securing one catering event for a restaurant, or you hosting an event at a restaurant, can make or break that budget, rather than like going every day or getting your friends to go every day. So those would be the couple things that I would say, that I have seen on the ground. But then the other big thing is marketing. People need help with marketing, and y'all, it's such an intergenerational thing because older folks are getting left behind and younger people are just being born with iPads in their hands and being able to like code. And so we need to bridge that. We need to be able to go into places and say, I'll TikTok it for you. I'll amplify it for you. I'll repost it for you, while honoring their own marketing boundaries and ways of marketing their own stuff.